The formidable Russian Oreshnik versus a garage cooperative in a small Ukrainian town. What kind of disgrace is this for the Russian missile forces? Did the occupiers really miss Kyiv by 80 kilometers when they launched their flying scarecrow? Moreover, there is information that on the night of May 24th, the Russians launched another Oreshnik at Ukraine, which fell in the temporarily occupied part of Donetsk region right on the positions of the Russians themselves. We have gathered all the information about the reasons for such a cringe-worthy failure. Let's watch.
This represents the Kremlin's failure. Russia launched a medium-range ballistic missile, Oreshnik, to strike Ukraine.
Putin launched his Oreshnik against Bila Tserkva. They are truly out of their minds. It is important that this does not go without consequences for Russia.
The Oreshnik was launched from the Kapustin Yar testing ground in the Astrakhan region of the Russian Federation and fell in the Kyiv region. This information was confirmed by the head of the communications department of the Ukrainian Air Force Command. The published footage online captured the moment of impact with the separation of warheads, accompanied by a series of explosions.
The Oreshnik actually hit a garage cooperative in Bila Tserkva and in a completely different part of the city from the airfield. Such is their strike of retribution.
The remains of the missile were collected and sent for examination. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed the use of the Oreshnik missile. They added that the strike's objectives were achieved and all designated targets were hit.
Did you like the picture? Beautiful, isn't it? There aren't even any explosions. It's just insanely expensive hardware buried in the ground for the sake of a pretty picture that no one believes in anymore except for pensioners.
Their indignation is quite understandable, since the cost of just one such missile
to destroy 3 garages with a missile that costs somewhere between $50 and $80 million. It simply does not appear to be a very serious strategy at all.
That amount is equal to hundreds of annual budgets of Kapustin Yar, where the Oreshnik missiles are launched from. Meanwhile, Kapustin Yar itself continues to fall into decline. There are 3 theories about what the Russians were actually aiming for this time. The first theory is absurd, but it exists.
There was in fact a workshop there producing FP-1-1 drones, which fly over Russia and cause a lot of trouble for Russians.
Some propagandists claim that there was an airfield or a non-operational thermal power plant nearby.
But even if we assume that the Bila Tserkva military airfield was there, which has long been out of operation and where nothing has flown for a long time, let's say they wanted to destroy some buildings there, well, maybe it would have been possible to destroy those buildings. When you consider everything else involved, from the fall of a 1.5 meter tall structure, well, specifically a mock-up of a warhead, a 1.5 ton mock-up that has been divided into 36 individual and distinct elements. It all just seems, well, to be hardly the most efficient or rational way to go about doing these things in practice.
One alternative explanation could be that the guidance system just experienced a complete malfunction.
The strike was planned for Kyiv, for the decision-making center, but they missed by 90 or 100 kilometers.
But it is also possible that this was a conspiracy against the dictator Putin and the strike was deliberately aimed elsewhere.
The people who planned this operation intentionally diverted the missiles from their real targets in order to, well, to shift the whole picture, so that as a result, Russia would not be able to inflict significant damage on Ukraine. Here too, there was no strike on the intended targets. It was probably the most massive and powerful ballistic strike in the entire history of the city of Kyiv. But the result is, yes, we have casualties. Yes, we have injured people. Yes, a large number of various facilities have been destroyed. But with such a ballistic strike, there should have been, well, more serious destruction and to more significant targets.
This is already the 3rd use of this weapon by the criminal Kremlin regime against Ukraine in less than a year.
The strike on Dnipro. There was information about damage to a boiler house. Actually, the territory of Yuzhmash itself is 440 hectares, I think. Hitting such a large area is, well, more or less possible. The question is, with what accuracy?
In January 26th, Russia launched the Oreshnik at Lviv,
somewhere closer to the center, in order to inflict some serious damage, to show Europeans, look, this is what will happen to you when we strike you with the Oreshnik. But it seems to me that it also did not achieve its goal.
This is a Russian tool of terror. It is unlikely that a missile whose main purpose is to deliver a nuclear warhead will have a sufficiently high level of accuracy. The Kremlin mothballed the production of Yaz, or as Putin likes to call it, Oreshnik, back in 2018.
The first launches took place in 2012.
Experts believe that after launching at Ukraine, the Russians could have at most one missile left.
It seems there was one unsuccessful missile launch, so most likely, in the best case scenario for them, the Russians now have one or two missiles left. And in the most likely scenario, they have run out of these missiles. That's why I don't really believe that the Russians resume production after 6 years. In 2024, supposedly they restarted or were planning to restart production, that it's actually possible to resume manufacturing such missiles at the Vodkin's machine building plant after 6 years, a plant we also struck.
Moreover, it still hasn't been proven that it was actually Oreshnik that was brought to Belarus and not some other missile.
What they brought, judging by the pictures, they didn't bring Oreshnik there. They brought some other makeshift thing that doesn't look anything like Oreshnik at all. There was just something, some piece of plywood, they put together some kind of outline, did something, but Oreshnik is a much bigger missile, 20 meters long, while there it was about 12 meters.
Russian propaganda was loudly claiming that Russia could ramp up production even though there is no official data on this. And there are no specialists in Russia who could fix the mistakes.
The concepts, the approaches of the Russians are not about gradual improvement, but about major leaps. Then Russia is no longer capable of making major technological, scientific, or innovative leaps. Basically, they have no innovative development at all. All their so-called innovations are just the use of Soviet-era designs.
Another missile that Putin boasts about is the Sarmat. It became one of the most high-profile failures of the Kremlin's nuclear deterrence program.
There was only one more or less decent, successful launch of the Sarmat. All the others were failures. One time, they say, the silo was even blown apart, leaving a crater about 200 meters wide. It's hard for me to even imagine something like that.
Well, you've probably seen that footage. Isn't it time to receive the order? Order received. Prepare for joint action. Ready for joint action. But no one has been able to confirm the authenticity of the data that was reported to the bunker dictator. The use of the Oreshnik, Sarmat, or any other weapon is nothing more than a means of pressure. But in reality, these missiles have not received the proper attention or investment. It's no wonder that commentators often ironically call the Oreshnik Putin's wonder weapon.